Alexander the Great, Hannibal, Genghis Khan, Napoleon Bonaparte, William Sherman, Ulysses S. Grant, Sun Tzu, and Miyamoto Musashi. And the list can go on. The strategies used by these great warriors, these great generals, the ones that they used on the battlefield and in duels, they can be applied to your everyday life and your health. And in this episode, I'm going to share the one uncommon strategy that you can leverage from these guys to take back control of your health and life in 2023. Welcome to Executive Health. I'm Julian Hayes II, back at it again. And if this is your first time here, go ahead and subscribe. Go ahead so you never miss another episode. And if this is not your first time here, thank you once again for joining me. And as I mentioned, I shared a bunch of those generals, a bunch of those warriors, and you might be thinking, what does this have to do with your health? But stay with me here. As you go about optimizing your health, your nutrition, and your exercise are obvious factors of importance. I think that's easily understood. However, as you and I both know, when it comes to optimizing our health, this is conceptually easy. It's very easy to understand. But the difficulty, this arises oftentimes when it comes to actually executing. It's the same thing in business. It's pretty straightforward of what needs to be done a lot of times to make a business successful. But how you do that, well, that's where the difficulty comes in. And in both scenarios, in health and business, and probably you can throw relationships in there too, life becomes messy. So running a business, leading others, maintaining your close relationships, and much more, this tends to make our health and managing our health, I should say, much more complicated. Now, I've been doing some thinking as we're toward the end of the year now, and I like to look back on the year, and I also kind of like to get my crystal ball out and kind of forecast the upcoming year and kind of the direction that I think things are going. And, as I look into the current state of the world right now, and I look at the direction and just the way that society is overall moving and everything, and I get this feeling that we're in a war. There's a war going on right now. And it's not the type of war that you're thinking about. This war doesn't require any type of weapons or anything, which if weapons are your thing, that's cool. I love the Second Amendment. Great. But this war here is one that's an assault on our mind, an assault on our spirit. This war here, we have to really guard our mind. We have to really guard our emotions and our spirit. Because oftentimes, as I always talk about, optimal health is an inside out job. So all the biohacks are great, but the first measure starts in that nucleus inside of us to really optimize that. And then it's going to manifest itself externally. So when it comes to this topic of war and war from numerous fronts of life, one of the books that I always return to is the classic from Robert Greene's 33 Strategies of War. Absolutely love it. I have the hard copy and I also have the audio. That's how much of a fan I love his books. I have it on all of those. Now, as I said, man, it is a classic. So many jewels in this book. And in this book, there are 5 types of war. And number 1 is a self-directed war. And this war here is all about how to prepare your mind and spirit for battle. The next type of war is an organizational war. How to structure and motivate your army. The next one is a defensive war. After that is an offensive war. And then the last is unconventional war. You can also call this dirty war, dirty tactics. Now, if you think about politics, I'm pretty sure they use that last one as their main one. But to go over these again, self-directed war, organizational war, defensive war, offensive war, and unconventional war. Today, we're going to simply focus on a self-directed war. And so I'm going to share a strategy in the domain of self-directed war that you can use to take back or even take further control of your health and your life in 2023. But before we begin, though, the very first thing that we must do is to get our minds right. Oftentimes, we stress, we discuss stress, I should say, pardon me on that. We discuss stress, we discuss obstacles in a very negative light, a very disempowering way. And we do everything we can to remove stress, to remove obstacles, to remove any sort of difficulties. Most of us, we remove these things to make our lives as easy as possible. And that seems like it's the right thing to do. But I want to push back a little bit on this. And this episode is really a reminder to myself as well. And that without any stress, without any difficulty, obstacles, or hardships that come up, there is no growth. This is hormesis. If you go to the gym and you just lift the same weights consistently and they're super light and they're never challenging, you're not going to have much growth. So there's a passage in this book where he talks about spiritualizing our warfare. And I think this is a great place to start in this discussion here. So I'm going to read this passage here. So he talks about spiritualizing your warfare. And every day you face battles. That is the reality for all creatures in their struggle to survive. But the greatest battle of all is with yourself, your weakness, your emotions, your lack of resolution in seeing things through to the end. You must declare unceasing war on yourself. As a warrior in life, you welcome combat and conflict as ways to prove yourself, to better your skills, to gain courage, to gain confidence and experience. Instead of repressing your doubts and fears, you must face them down. Do battle with them. You want more challenges. You invite more war. You are forging the warrior spirit, and only constant practice will lead you there. Man, that's a powerful thing. I have that whole passage outlined for me. And I read that as this is a way to set yourself, to prepare yourself for the incoming year, to prepare yourself for who knows what could come along the way. Because a lot of times you can prepare all you want, but there's always going to be unforeseen obstacles and scenarios that are going to come your way. And I still think back to this of how at the very beginning of the pandemic, how a lot of people were unprepared and they never adjusted, and they gained 20 pounds or so during that whole period with those pandemic pounds and all sorts of things. And some people still haven't recovered and they still use that excuse. And I think about, from a financial standpoint, that we hear all this talk of recession this, recession that, and it's going to be really hard and everything. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to contract instead of expand. From a professional business standpoint, this is an opportunity for you to expand, for you to gain ground, for you to surpass a lot of people who are going to use this as an excuse. There's a lot of people who are going to use this time also to let their health decline, to let it slide because of what's going on in the world. This is another opportunity for you to get ahead. This is kind of what I'm telling myself. So, the strategy, the uncommon strategy, you won't see this on Fox, CNN, probably none of your favorite health people, because it's probably not a good thing to say. It's not pleasant to say. But this strategy for 2023 is of the utmost importance, not only for your health, but for your mental well-being. And this is leveraging the polarity strategy. In particular, declaring war on your enemies. Yes, I said declare war on your enemies. And I'll read the opening quote to this. Life is an endless battle and conflict, and you cannot fight effectively unless you identify your enemies. People are subtle and evasive, disguising their intentions, pretending to be on your side. You need clarity. Learn to smoke out your enemies, to spot them by the signs and patterns that reveal hostility. Then, once you have them in your sights, inwardly declare war. As the opposite poles of a magnet create motion, your enemies, your opposites, can fill you with purpose and direction. As people who stand in your way, who represent what you loathe, people to react against, they are a source of energy. Do not be naive. With some enemies, there can be no compromise, no middle ground. And toward the end of this, I'm going to give you 2 ways that I leverage this strategy here. And I'm doubling down on this even more now. And it's the holiday season, and I've implemented this, and we'll explain that later. There's some more passages that I want to go on here before we get to the final action points, just to solidify this more. That life is a battle and struggle, as he says in the book here, and you will constantly find yourself facing bad situations, destructive relationships, and dangerous engagements. So you think about it's the holiday time. I know it's we're supposed to be festive and everything, but let's be honest. A lot of our family members, they're energy drainers. A lot of our friends that we grew up with, that we are supposed to have this obligation to, this invisible contract of that we seem to have with them. A lot of them can't go where we're going. A lot of them don't see the vision that we have. You know, if you're very early in your stages right now of building a company, building a YouTube channel, or whatever creative endeavor or professional development that you're doing, there may not be a whole lot of physical evidence, and those people are going to be naysayers. And for right now, they cannot go. They must be removed. And you know, there's a passage in Luke 11, verse 23, where he says, "He that is not with me is against me. He that is not with me is against me." Your energy is very paramount right now. It's very paramount right now. And when you are building something of substance, and you also have to focus on your health, and you also want a very high quality of life, there's a very low margin of error because your energy is already being given out to these things as well. So you cannot have people that are detracting from you, that are taking your energy, sucking your energy away. You cannot be in environments for too long that is taking away your energy. And so you have to, going back to some more from this book here, think of yourself as you are always about to go into battle. Always prepare. You know, I listened to a David Goggins interview this week, and he talked about people who run, and people always need something like a carrot in front of them. Like, I'm running so I can get ready for this marathon. Whereas he says, I'm running and I keep running and training because I'm preparing for life. I don't have to get ready ever because I stay ready. And that really resonated with me, that oftentimes we train because maybe we got this vacation coming up. Maybe we want to look a certain way when we go to the beach, or, you know, we're preparing for a marathon or something. But how about we just prepare for life? How about we prepare to stay as resilient as possible? So whatever comes our way, we'll be ready for. And so everything depends on our frame of mind and how we look at the world. Some people see the world right now as doom and gloom. Things are getting worse and worse and worse. Whereas you talk to some other people, and life has never been more beautiful. Life is only getting better. And it's all perception. You know, I wrote I just released a free optimal executive report that you can get at the bottom. And that is one of the points about your perspective. See possibilities, not problems. See opportunities, not obstacles. It's all about our mind. You know, I bet if I go to the Ferrari dealership, there's going to be a lot of abundance thinking there. So somebody at least is thinking in abundance. So it's all about, once again, your environments as well. And that affects our energy. I'm not going to give it all away, but there's 8 key domains that I talk about that must be optimized when it comes to our health and performance that I also have in this report. And a shift of perspective can transform you from a passive and confused mercenary into a motivated and creative fighter. So think of yourself as this person here. You know, your perspective can help you leap past many people, can help with your resilience. Just the way you think affects your immune system. Something as simple. I think about during the pandemic, how you never heard too many people talk about stress and anxiety, and how that could lead to a higher likelihood of having a worse effect when you caught the thing out there, you know, and how that depresses your immune system, stress and anxiety. We didn't hear those things. We don't hear about increased stress and uncontrolled stress. That's the difference between embracing stress and having uncontrolled levels of stress, and how that's excess glucocorticoids and what that does to the rate of we age and our overall immune system. Again, we didn't hear these things. We never hear these things. So I say that the more clearly that you recognize who you do not want to be, then the clearer your sense of identity and purpose will be. And that passage right there leads me to the conclusion of this. How do you implement this? This all sounds good right now. This all sounds good. But how do you actually implement this? I'm going to give you two things to do here. Two simple things to do. I want you to identify your top 2 to 3 enemies. Just your top 2 to 3 enemies. This can be a person. This can be a group of people, a collective. This can be an environment. This can be even advice. You know, oftentimes I just had an excellent conversation on executive loneliness, and we talked about how executives and entrepreneurs, oftentimes we are addicts and we cover up things through vices, whether it's sex, whether it's porn, gambling, so many different things. So what are your enemies? Is your enemy a vice where you have to overcome this thing that just seems to have you? Is it a group of people? Is it family? Maybe they don't know that they're unintentionally draining your energy, but they could be a deterrent right now. Is it so 2 to 3 enemies? And maybe it's hard when you write this, but I want you to really be honest. And when you have these 2 to 3 enemies, the difference in war and this type of war here is you don't have to just completely eradicate the people and never be around them again. But there is, I want you to think about this. Sometimes with people, you got to look at it like a TV show. You're the main character. And sometimes the season, say you're in season 3 now, you just finished season 2, but 2023 is the beginning of season 3 of the show. To keep that show fresh, to keep that show growing, sometimes you have to get rid of some of the cast from the previous season so you can allow room for new cast to come into the new season, to keep the show fresh, to help you grow to the next iteration of what that show and season needs to be. So this is how I want you to think about people. You're putting them on ice right now. You're putting them to the bench right now. You know, some of your old friends who maybe are not going in the same direction you are, maybe don't really bring much benefit for this iteration of you right now, put them to the side right now. Same thing for your family. Put them to the side. Limit your interaction with them. Limit your conversation with them. That's what I did. Because they're not here for this iteration right now. They're not just here for that iteration. The second part of this here, I want you to create an anti-vision. And we often talk about what's your vision, visualize. But sometimes the thing that gets me motivated is part of that dark side. The thing that gets me motivated is knowing that a lot of my competition is not doing some of the things I'm doing right now. It's knowing that a lot of other people right now, when it's going to be 5 degrees the next day with a very strong wind chill, they're not going to be outside running. They're not going to be outside walking, whatever your activity is. They're not going to be doing that. They're going to take it easy. They're going to take it easy for the rest of this month, and they're going to take it easy and ease back into things at the beginning of the next year in 2023. But we don't have to do that. I'm not going to do that. This is an opportunity. And that's the anti-vision. The anti-vision is, who do you despise? What kind of characteristics do you despise? Who do you not want to be? And I read this passage again, that the more clearly you recognize who you do not want to be, then the clearer your sense of identity and purpose will be. Optimal health is all about a system. It's not just about nutrition and exercise. That's very basic. There's much more than that. Think about longevity, the longest living people, that group. One of the key things is to have a mission. to have a rhyme and reason for why you get up every day and do things. It's not just to be a drone, to be a robot, to follow a script. No, it's not that. So think about this anti-vision. Who do you not want to be? I absolutely hate victims. I do not like that victim mentality stuff. Do not like it. Oh man, it gets me going. It gets me going so much. And so I think about the anti-Julian. I think about people who don't go do something because they don't feel like it. They don't go run because they don't feel like it, or a little something like that. And that gets me going. So as we wrap up this episode, this is a little different here, but there's so many books that I read and so many lessons from these books that we can apply to our health. Because life is very much a battle. It's very much a battle. It is very much a battle. And I know a lot of us listening or watching right now, we have big dreams. We have huge ambitions. And sometimes the hardest battles are within ourselves. And sometimes our toughest enemies are the people closest to us right now. So sometimes you got to get in that warlike mentality to break free. So this is a little different of an episode, and it's a little unplanned, but it's just what was on my heart right now was to talk about. Once again, got to get this book, 33 Strategies of War. And so as we wrap this up again, identify your top 2 to 3 enemies and then create an anti-vision for who you absolutely despise and do not want to be. And until next time, stay awesome, be limitless. Go ahead and get that free executive report that I just created for you all. 17 actions that will help you look, feel, and stay at the top of your game with precision, along with slowing down aging. It's a fantastic guide that I wrote. It's at the bottom. It's in the show notes. And until next time, stay awesome, be limitless, and always go be the CEO of your health and your life. Peace.